In this podcast, I thought what I'd do is talk a little bit about what it's like to be on a trip or out wherever, really. It might be out on a boat, photographing sea animals, whales, seals, that kind of thing, or you might be on land. But what are the kind of things that you should expect if you're planning to do a trip like this and you haven't done one before? So I've got a few prompts for myself here about what to expect. So the first one is mosquitoes and bitey things. Um, so obviously, one of the things in your preparation is to look at the prevalence of things like malaria and dengue fever and other diseases that are spread by primarily mosquito bites, but other animals as well. And depending on the length of your trip, you may decide to take antimalarials, that kind of thing. But the problem is that a lot of them are essentially antibiotics, and if you take them over an extended period, say several months, they can do damage to your body. So I've had this in Southern Africa, and I was kind of in two minds whether or not to take antimalarials to start with, and I decided to do it. But by the time I was about 3 months in, I was starting to have stomach troubles myself, and in fact, talking to somebody who was leading that particular volunteering project, she lived in Mozambique, which is where I was, and she didn't take them for that reason. So I think there's a couple of things about this. If it's a short trip and you're able to take antimalarials, probably a good idea to do that because it gives you that extra level of safety. But whether you're on a short trip or a long trip, another thing is to just think about your clothing. So I like to wear lightweight long sleeve shirts and long pants, and that reduces the chances of getting bitten anyway. Secondly, I use a repellent with DEET, which is the thing that most people go for at the moment. Often that's combined with a sunscreen quite often. The mosquitoes will avoid the parts of your body that are covered, but do remember that if you've missed the bit, the mosquitoes will often find where you haven't applied it. So it is something to think about, and you really need to make your own decision on what you want to do. I'm certainly not recommending anything one way or the other. And if you're in doubt, I would recommend talking to a medical professional about what's right for you. But this is just something to think about. Now, another bitey thing you might come across, or more of a stingy thing actually, is scorpions. And this is more relevant if you're camping out or sleeping in a sleeping bag on the ground. Scorpions are attracted to your body heat, and they have a bit of a habit of either getting underneath ground sheets, or if you leave your sleeping bag rolled out during the day, they might find their way in, and people definitely get stung by mosquitoes, by scorpions that have decided to make a home in their sleeping bags. So a couple of tips there. One is to make sure that your sleeping bag is rolled up tightly when you leave it during the day. And often you can roll it up within the ground sheet, just roll a whole lot up and strap them together tightly so nothing can get in. And then when you do get in, just be a little bit careful, shake the bag out, open it up, unzip it and shake it out to make sure there's nothing in there, and take a little bit of care. So a few minutes at the beginning of the day, just rolling everything up, and then really a minute or two just checking the bag out before you go to bed are certainly well worth it. Now, another thing that I've got here is colours and smells. So again, with colours, avoid wearing anything that's very brightly coloured when you're certainly tracking animals on land. So that would mean with your regular clothing, just go for light colours. A sort of drab colour is good. Sort of light browns, light greens, that sort of thing is very good. Failing that, blacks are good. But don't go out in some sort of wild Hawaiian shirt outfit. That's really going to make you stand out, and it won't do anything to help your chances of finding animals. Sorry, that would be a message. The other thing is on your camera gear. I've got I've got one of the Canon Pro lenses, and it's white. I prefer to put a spray cover on that, which is grey, and that I find helps me blend in a bit more as well. Now, the other thing to think about is smells, and when I was tracking elephants in Namibia, one of the things we were told was not to wear any deodorants or anything, any strong scents while we were out there, because animals they're very sensitive to smell. It gives them all sorts of information about who's around and what's around. So you don't want to be adding an unusual smell to the situation when you're tracking. So it's just something more to expect when you're out in the field. But if you're told not to wear any deodorant, that's fine. You know, your natural smell will be fine, I hope, in most cases, for both the wildlife and the people you're with. Another thing I wanted to mention is dust. So I've already mentioned that I use a cover on my camera usually. That's a spray cover. So dust is a problem, obviously getting on your lens. You need to be regularly cleaning your lens. But if you're in an area where there's very fine dust, it can get between the camera body and the lens, and that can start giving you all sorts of problems. So if you do need to change lenses, be very careful. I often have a blanket or a cover or something I can put over the whole camera and then do the change undercover, so there's a minimum amount of dust floating around to get in, and particularly onto the sensor. Ideally, I don't change lenses at all. So typically I've got two cameras with me, one with a long zoom and the other with a wide angle zoom on it. And that way I don't need to change lenses. The long zoom is what I primarily use. So that'll have the spray cover on it. The other camera and lens I don't have a cover for, so I'll generally stick them in a camera bag and just pull them out when I want to use them. Something else to just be conscious of as well is that you're probably going to have to wait. I mean, you might get lucky. Things sometimes happen straight away. Other times, though, you've got to wait, and sometimes that might be several days. And if you're visiting a place for a short period, you have to be prepared that you might not see anything at all, or at least the animals you've primarily gone along to see. So that unfortunately is just the name of the game. So do be prepared to wait. On the other hand, be ready to take a shot straight away. So one of the things I'll do on the camera is turn off the auto power off. Certainly for things like whales, because it can all be over. If it's bridge, it can be over in a couple of seconds. So and the camera's still turning on. If you've got a land situation, then you might well be able to get away with it, because things usually don't happen that fast. But if you've got, say, a cheetah chasing down an impala, that can happen very quickly, and it's very easy to miss the shot. So my general recommendation is to switch the auto power off. If you're concerned about draining the battery, switch the camera off manually when there's nothing going on, and taking a chance. If you're able to recharge the camera every day, then definitely do that. If not, then you're just going to have to. I use the bolt-on extender on my Canon bodies, which allow me to put a second battery there. So that's one way of getting around that. But that obviously can work better if you've got certainly the option to recharge every day. You ideally want battery power to last you 2 or 3 days if you can't get access to power, in which case you're going to have to ration yourself a little bit. So yeah, I guess the point there is be ready, but also for things to happen straight away. Always have your camera equipment ready, but be aware that you might well have days where you don't see much of anything. The other thing that I always like to do is make sure I'm with a local guide, because they will know the area. They'll know the best places to go. They're very good at reading spoor, and I've spoken about that in another podcast about tracking. But spoor is anything left behind by an animal. It could be dung, it could be footprints, it could be damage to vegetation, it could be absolutely anything. So that is a story. It's like standing on the ground and looking around you, and that spoor tells you the story of what's happened in the last few hours, the last few days. The trick is being able to read the language, and that's where the guides come in, because most of the guides I've been with are very, very good. They'll know by looking at the tracks how old they are. They'll know by looking at dung how old it is. If it's cold and dry, probably a few days. If it's warm, wet and full of dung beetles, that's very recent. So you get these kind of clues to tell you what's going on and where things are. The other thing that they might do, particularly if you're looking at predators, is to, if all else fails, just hang out where the prey animals are, because sooner or later your predators are going to come along and try and take an animal. So that's one thing to do. Now that can be very boring if nothing's happening, but it does mean you have to stay alert the whole time while you're with the prey animals. And the final thing I wanted to talk about, this is quite a short podcast, is just always be ready for the unexpected. And I don't just mean be ready for things to happen very quickly. I'm also thinking about unexpected shots. You might just get some backlighting happening, or an animal will just set itself up against the skyline, so it looks pretty interesting. But what I mean really is be open to other photographs, other images that you hadn't particularly planned for. So you might be hoping to get, say, a whale breaching. If you're watching humpback whales, you might be looking for a predator to chase an animal, or you might just want to catch a picture of a predator doing anything. But sometimes other animals, there are other things happen. One thing I'm just thinking of now is a picture I got of a chameleon that I'm quite pleased with. But that was seen by a friend who happened to see it as we were driving past. And how she saw it, I don't know, because I couldn't see it when I was standing right next to it. But be ready for other things that pop along. So that might even be trees, light through the trees, all sorts of things like that. So that really is, I could talk more about behind the scenes, but these are probably the key things that... So they overlap a little bit between what to expect when you're actually on a trip, and also what to do at the planning stage to make sure that when you do get out there, wherever you're going, you are ready to make the most of the situation. Because for most of us, we're not able to go out every day and see these animals, or potentially see these animals. So when the opportunity comes along, we really have to be on the ball, really at the top of our game, to make the most of the opportunity. And one of the ways to help you in that scenario is to do a little bit of preparation and be a bit more clued up about what to expect when you get out there. So that's it for this podcast. I hope you, if you are going away on a trip, I hope you have a great trip, and that this has been helpful. And I'll speak to you again on another podcast. So bye for now. Oh, and one thing just before you go, please take a look at the 2026 wildlife calendar. That's available now. It's on the website. There's a link below the description of this podcast episode. So please take a look, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye now.